Hello, what's up, guys? Good afternoon. So this video is a video explaining how the extensions um, assignment was done. For those of you that asked for it, this is the video I am making for that project, and I'm sharing to the group also for the sake of others who are still struggling with this particular project. So just to help you guys get back on track. So before I begin, let me just show you guys what we're working on. So this is the project, or this is my own project. And to do this, we are going to be building um, four main sections. Okay, four main sections, and let me briefly show you that. Four main sections. So we're going to build the first section, which is going to be this container that is going to cover from this point to this point. Okay, this is going to be the first main container that we're going to build. Now this container is going to hold everything that is inside, everything that's inside from this extension. Sorry about this. Sorry about all that. Anyways, the container is going to contain the header. It's also going to contain, let me clear this, sorry. Yep, I don't want to save it. That was an error. So let me clear our drawings. Okay, so moving on, we're going to build this section, which is the header. We're going to build this section, which is the filter section. Let me toggle this off. Which is the filter section that contains this on the right and this on the left. Then in the header, we're going to have the logo on the left and the theme toggle on the right. So this is going to be one section, this is going to be another section, and this is going to be the third section that contains all of our cards. Okay, I hope I'm not confusing anybody. So I'll take this off. So that's what we're going to be building. Like I said, we're going to build four major sections. So we're going to build up the main wagwan. We're going to build the main section, right? Which is somewhere in the middle. Oh god. Sorry about that. We're going to build the main section, which is here, right? And then we're going to build at the top our header. Underneath, we are going to build the filter section, and underneath, we are going to build the card section. So this is what our layout is going to look at. You can see my drawing clearly. I hope you do. Anyways, so let's get right into it. To do that, we're going to head to we're going to head to our folder. So you need to create a folder. In this case, I've named it the extensions project. All right, and in the folder, we're going to create another folder called images, and in it we are going to save, copy and paste all the images that Mr. Gideon shared to us. All right, it's in the file that he shared. So just go over there, copy the images and paste in here. When that is done, go over to VS Code and open your folder on VS Code. So right here, I've already opened the folder on VS Code. So you can see the images folder is here with all of our images. So what next we are going to do is create the index.html file. And we are also going to create the style.css file. And when you're doing that, please make sure that you are inside of your main folder. Don't mistakenly create it inside the images folder. Make sure what is highlighted is your main folder. Okay, your main folder here. Click on it, then create your file index.html and style.css. So on the right, let me close this. So let's open up our index.html page. So first things first, we are going to input our boiler template, which is the exclamation mark shift 1. As you can see, the pop up there. This is what the template will look like. So shift 1 and enter. There you go. So let's title this project to be the extension, or call it browser extensions. Let's run this to be live. Awesome. So you can see up here we have saved it as browser extensions. That's our title. So going back to the code, in between, okay, before we start doing anything, let's link our CSS file. So if you go to our folder structure, the style.css is in the same level as the index.html. So we need to take note of your folder structure. So we're going to link this, and inside the href, we're going to enter in dot slash, and we'll come down to style.css. So this is properly linked. Now to check that our style.css is linked to our HTML, let's try and give the body a background color of red. Okay, you can see it has changed. So our style.css is linked properly. Excuse me. So remember the structure of the website we are going to build. I said here we're going to build this top section, which is we're going to build this top section here, which is the header section. Okay, so let us start with that, and then we'll come back. So this is the final look, and then this is what we are working on currently. So here, like I said, we're going to build the header section that contains the logo on the left and an icon on the right. Okay, so let's go back to our code. Then I also said, before we do that, I also said this is what we are going to achieve. We need to specify a container like this. This is our browser, for example, and our project needs to lie in the middle like this, right? So we need this to be a container. We need this to be a container in here like this. This is going to be a container, right? And sorry about this, let me bring that up. So this is going to be our container right here in the middle of our page, and at the top we're going to have our header, right? At the top we're meant to have our header. So let's do this too. We create the container, and inside the container we create the header file. So over to, let's go back to our code. So we need to create a container, and for this we're creating a main tag. All right, this is the main container for our project, so I prefer to use main to contain all that we are going to work with, and we are going to call this a class, give this a class of container. Okay, so moving on, let's do this. So now we want to target our class and make it look like this. We want to make it look like this, right? If this is our browser, we want the container to be right here in the middle. We want it to be in the middle of our browser, the way it is on our project. So you can see from here to here is where the container lies. This is where the container starts, and at this point is where the container ends, but it's in the middle of our whole browser. So to do that, let's go to our code. We need to target the CSS called container. Before we do that, we also need to clear any form of default padding or margin. So for this, let me give you an example. We have a text, hello world. Let's go to our browser. As you can see, if we zoom this, you see the space between hello world and our browser. To the top and to the left, there's a space there. So we want to clear this to make sure that every element we have in the browser is not going to give it a default what padding or margin, and it's going to obstruct our structure if we don't declare that the browser should remove any default. Okay, so to remove those defaults, to remove those defaults, we are going to use the asterisk. Okay, what the asterisk does is it targets all the elements in our document. Every element in our document is going to target them. Okay, everything between the body, opening body tag, and the closing body tag is going to target all of them. And what do we want it to do? I want it to set all the padding for all these elements to be 0, and the margin also to be what? 0. If we go back to our browser, we can see that the hello world is now at the edge of our browser, to the top. And if I should highlight this, you can see there's no space between the highlight and our text, right? If I should take this off and come back here, you see that in our highlights there's a space to the top and there's a space to the left. That is the default padding and margin that the browser is giving to all our elements. So we want to clear that, and we're going to have this. So that is done. Now another thing is we want all of our sizing to fall inside of our box, right? This box, if we are to give this box a padding to the top, it will push the content out of the box, and it's going to make the structure look very bad. Okay, so we want any property we're giving our element, it should be tied into the box of that element, into the element space, so that it doesn't go to another or disrupt another element. Okay, so to do that, we need to declare the box sizing to be the border box, so everything is within that what element. Okay, don't worry, this is just something you need to pay attention to when you're putting in your code. Just copy and paste as it is. Then moving on, we are going to then target the container, right? We're going to target our container, and we have already given this container to be a class, this main tag to be a class of what? Container. So going to our CSS, to target a class, we are going to use start with a dot and the what? The class name. So we have targeted this. Let's give it a background and see if it works. So we're going to give it a background red, and that text is meant to highlight red. Exactly. So everything from this left point to this right point is our container. That is why it is what's having that red value. But like in our project, our container has a certain width from here at this point on the left to this point on the right. It doesn't take up the full page as we have here. Okay, so how do we achieve this? Now we are meant to give the container a width. Let's give it a width of say 85%. Okay, let's go to our browser. You can see that it has taken up a width of 85%. I'm using percentage because using percentage is more flexible, is more responsive. Okay, it responds to the width of the screen. If a browser is browsing on their phone, it will take 80% of the phone screen. If a user is browsing on a laptop like we have here, it will take 80% of the laptop screen. So it's more responsive that way. Let me do this. I'll come here instead. Okay, it's more responsive that way. So if I reduce this, you see it's responsive. It increases along with the page that we are working on, or along with our browser. Okay, so if you have a browser as small as this, it takes up 80%. If you have a browser as wide as this, it takes up 80%. So percentage makes your work more responsive across different browsers. So back to our code, we have given it a width of 80%. We also want to give it a height. Let's say we give it a height of, what do we give it? Let's say we give it a height of 1000 pixels. So you can see it takes up the height of this 1000 or 10,000, 1000 pixels. Okay. So you can see it takes up the height of what? 1000 what? Pixels. But in this case, I'm not going to give it a height. Why? Because I want our container to take up the height of all of its content. So this is what I mean. If I'm to give it a h1 tag called hello world, it is going to be the height of this header tag. If I give it some more text, let me take this off. If I give it another text, it's going to take up the height of these two texts, like this. So you can see. If I should give it more, it's going to take up the height of all the 4 texts that we have. Alright? So that is why I'm not giving it a height. Also, why I'm not giving it a height is if I give it a height, for example, of say 300 pixel, right? So this is what it's going to look like. Sorry, this is zoomed too much. Okay, awesome. So this is a height of 300 pixels and this is a width of 85%, right? So let me give it more text, more content rather, and let's see what happens. So you see the content now is going outside of our box. This makes the structure look kind of weird. So what I do is I don't give the container a specific height because the content could change over time and it could affect the whole code. So let me just delete this and delete. Okay, so here we have it here, overflowing our container. So what if I remove the height? You see that the height of the container takes up the height of all of its content. You can see that it adjusted here. So let me put this side by side. So if I should take this, comment this out, and reload. Oh, sorry, I've already removed the height, right? Good. So if I should give it a height of 300 pixels here, on our left screen, we give it a height of 300 pixels. You see, the content is overflowing. So we don't want this. We're going to remove the height and let it to be flexible enough to take the height of all of its content. Awesome. So that's what we want to achieve. So that's one. So coming over to our code, you can see the let me increase this. You can see that our main container is in the middle. So how do we put this red box to show up in the middle? Now there are 2 ways to do that. One way, you could display the body to be a flex, right? Let me do this here. So let's close the container. So we see this container is inside the body tag, right? This main container is inside our body tag. So to be able to allow this container to show up in the middle, we need to display our body to be what? Flex. Now what the flex does, it's a one-dimensional styling property, all right? It either aligns your elements horizontally or it aligns them vertically. It cannot align them both horizontally and vertically. So that vertical and horizontal alignment is what we're going to use to now place this container right in the middle of our page. So let's do that. So we're going to enter body, right? And in the body we're going to display the flex property is a The flex value is for a display what property. Okay, so display flex on the parent element, which is the body. And now let us adjust our sorry let us adjust our container to be in the middle. To do that, we're going to use a property called justify content. Okay, so this is our body, right? And the content in our body is this red container, right? So we're going to justify this container to the what? Center. Center is a horizontal. Justify content moves the container horizontally. Okay, it doesn't take it vertically, it moves it what? Horizontally. And that is how we place it at the what? Center. But what if we want to place this container in the middle of the whole page, where the space to the left, to the right is equal, and the space at the bottom and at the top is also what? Equal. How do we do that? Now this is where the align items will come into place. So justify content organizes the what? The content horizontally. Okay, while align items, sorry about this, align items organizes your content to vertically. So vertically, we want this box to align at the center. So it comes and brings the box down. All right. But this box is not going to move. Why? Because we haven't specified a height for our body. So let's specify the height to be 100% and the width to be 100%. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? Okay, let me use the VH. Exactly. So 100 VH that we put here means view height. So VH means what? View height. So it takes 100% of the view height of the screen. So this screen we're looking at, the 100% is from the top here to the bottom, right? So declaring it as 100 view height means 100% of the view height. If I'm to reduce this screen, if I'm to reduce this screen now, it will adjust accordingly. It's placing the container in the middle of this particular screen, right? So this is what the align item does. The same thing happens here. Justify content. It keeps our container in the what? In the center. And then the width that we gave 85% to the red container also makes it what? Flexible, responsive to the screen, as you can see. So let's run this back. So, but this is not the look we are trying to achieve. In our container, there's no space at the top and at the bottom. Okay, there's no space at the top and at the bottom. So we're going to remove all of this. They're not necessary. We're going to take this off. So this is one way to what? Position your element using the sorry, let me Good. So this is one way to position our element using flex. Okay, we have used flex here to position all of this in the middle, at the top, and so on. So moving on, to save time, we want to use another method called, we are going to use the margin. Okay, this method uses the what? Margin. If I should put a margin of 20 pixels, margin of 20 pixels will give space around the container. So let me do this. Also, so we have space to the left, to the top. There is actually space to the bottom, and to the right. But because we don't have any other content, so you will not notice that. Okay, there's actually a space to around this container. There's a space. So what if we give it two values of 30 pixels? Good. So what this does is, okay, so what this does is the first value here, 20 pixels, gives the value 20 pixels margin to the top and to the bottom. Okay, while the second value, 30 pixels, applies to the left and to the right. Okay, this is the two value margin styling. Good. So now what do we want to achieve here? We want this container to be in the center of our page using the margin. So what we're going to do, we're going to give it two values, 0 and auto. So now, remember I said two values. The first one applies to the top and to the bottom, while the second value applies to the left and to the right. So this first value means a margin of 0 pixels at the top and bottom of our container, right? And the auto means it is going to divide. Let me remove this. Let me comment this out. Now, see this space to the right. Okay, let's assume this is 100 what pixels. Let's assume the space here is what 100 pixels. This space is 100 pixels, right? When we declare a margin of auto here, when we declare a margin of auto, what the browser is going to do is it's going to divide this 100 pixels by 2, right? And we're going to get 50 what pixels. So automatically it takes 50 pixels and apply it to the left and to the right. Remember I said this, the second value in your margin applies to the left and to the right. So auto means that remaining space, divide it by 2 and share it between the left and the right. Okay, so I'm going to, let me remove this. Yep, and remove this. Okay, so bring back this. So that space now has been shared between the left and the right, making it what equal. Okay, so that is set. Our container has been set. Now the next thing we need to do, like I said, in here is go and focus on the what header. Okay, we're going to build our what our header. So go back to the HTML and we're going to remove all of this. All right, so first things first, we are going to create our header using the header tag. And inside our header here, we have the extensions to the left and we have an icon to the right. Okay, we have the extensions to the left and icon to the right. So let's style the header first of all. So we're going to come here. If you come to the final project, the body has a sort of bluish background. Okay, so we're going to have to style the body again. I'll remove this and this, and I'll just style all of this, comment out all of this. You know what, I'll remove this, and then background color is a faded blue, right? So I'll give it a white. Then hover this small block box and this will pop up. So we are going to drag our color down here to the blue gradient somewhere here, And right here is where our white color is. So we're going to drag along. You can see the circle there. So we'll give it a light faded blue somewhere around here. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Exactly. So we have our faded blue. Okay, so we can also give, let me take this off. See the difference here? It's white, and then with our background it's faded blue. So you can also give a background gradient using the background property, not the background color. Okay, so if you want to apply gradient on your browser, you use the background property, and then what type of gradient you want to declare. So here we're going to use a linear gradient. Now inside this bracket, you specify the two colors you want. Let's say we want blue and red. What's up? So we want blue and red, and we'll specify the direction. Let's say we want to give it to bottom. So what this means is it's going to flow from the top to the bottom in blue and what? Red. Why is it not working? What's going on? Linear gradient. Uh, what is going on? So linear gradient. So linear. Let's see. Just to check what I'm doing. So there's no linear value for background color. We only have the, yep, we have this. So here it says the syntax is put the first layer, the background layer, and the final background layer. So it's supposed to be two properties. But why is it not working? We have blue and yellow. So you want me? Is this still live? Yes, it is. Oh. Okay, so the reason that was not showing is because we didn't have any content. So there needs to be a content before any of that can work. Before any of that can work. So great. So we can say to bottom. Or we can say to the bottom right. You can see it's going to flow downwards to the right. Okay. So to avoid all of this, we do a height of 100. Let's see what's going to happen. Great. So setting the height of 100 VH, we can see the background has moved from the top to the bottom right? So this is a linear gradient that we have just applied right here. This is a linear gradient. So this is just me trying to explain how you can apply linear gradients. You can change this to bottom left is It's going to move blue to yellow towards the left direction. So from blue in the left direction to yellow. Okay, so we don't need all of this. Just going to take it off and bring back our color. What was that color we used again? Okay, great. So this is the color we're going to use. Now, we don't have a specific content in our container, so we're not going to see this background of red. So let's say we put in our header, and in our header, like I said, we have two things, the logo and the icon. So we're going to create um, two containers or two divs in our header, one for the logo and the other for the icon. Okay, so we're going to call this give it a class of toggle theme, and we're going to give this a class of logo. So like I said, we have two things we are going to put in our header. Over here we have the logo and we have the icon. That's what we just did here. So we've created one for the logo and we've created another for the icon. So within our logo, within our div container, let's bring in our logo, right? Before we do that, let's style the header. So we can see that the header here is white. If I'm not mistaken, we should have put this in a header content. So sorry, let me remove all of this. So we put a header content inside of the header. Now this header content is what is going to house this container, this logo and icon. Okay, so let me show you why I did that. So the header starts from here down here. Oh, what's this? So the header starts from here and goes up to this point. Okay, so all of this space is the header, right? And then this white background we are seeing is the header content. This white background we see here is the what? Header content. And inside the header content, we put in the logo and our icon. Why I prefer to do this is so that we can control the flow of the structure of the page we are trying to build. So I'm going to give this header content a width of 100%, okay, so that it takes up the full width of our header. Now let me explain this. So we're going to give the header here. Now CSS styling, I'm going to target the header. As you can see, there's no class that I gave the header, so I'll target the tagged name, which is the header. So I'm giving it a width of 100% and a height of 100 pixel. So let's come over here. So you can see, remember I said I'm not giving the container any height, right? It's going to take up the height of all of our content inside of it. So because I gave the header a height of 100 pixels, automatically the container takes up the height of what? 100 pixels. That's why you're seeing the red color over here. Okay, let me try and be quick. So moving on, we have created our header with width and height, and that's all we're going to do right here for now. Then inside our header we have the header content. In this case now we are going to target this class. Okay, we're going to target this class. And why is that? Inside the header content, we have two parts. Okay, inside the header content we have two parts. One, the logo, and the other on the right is the icon. Okay, so we are going to style the header content next. So over here, now we said this header content, this white section over here, right? This white section, we want to give it a background color of white, as we have already seen. Background color to be white. Okay, but then we need to give it a width as well. So 100%. Now 100% means this header content, I'll close all of it. Now this header content is a child of this header tag, because we can find this header content inside of our header tag. So this is our header tag. If I'm to open this tag, I'm going to see our header content. Okay, so 100% width means it's going to take 100% width of our header tag. So let me just give it a height quickly. Height of say 60 pixels. As you can see, it has come up here. So we give this white header content a width of 100% so that it fills up the container, which is the header container. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, coming here, you can see that there's a space at the top and at the bottom, which means we need to align this header content in the middle of our what? Of our header. So let me give this header a background color of green. Great. So background color of what? Green. So we need this header content. So I'm going to put this here to save us from confusion. So this is the header content. All right. So we want this header content to be vertically aligned inside our header tag. So quickly, let me just run that. We are going to use display of what? Flex. Okay, as I explained display flex before, it aligns horizontally or aligns vertically, right? So now we want to align this header content vertically, which means we want to move it down to the point where the space at the top and the space at the bottom is going to be what? Equal. And remember I said vertical movement is what? Align items. So we're going to align the item to be what? Centered. And as you can see, it takes up what? The center. Okay, that is that. We have settled that. So in our project, you can see that the header content has a radius. There's a curve on the edge. So this is what we call the border radius. Okay, so come back to the header content and give it a border radius. And what border radius do we want to give it? So we are going to give it, say, 20 pixels. Now take note of the curve. And you see that? And you see that? We enlarge this, you'll be able to see that it has been able to what? Curve. So we want, that curve is too much. So we want it to be what? Say 10 pixels. 10 pixels. Great, we can go with this for now. Also, the border radius can be applied to all the sides of your element. Okay, so let me give you an example. Say I want this to be 0 pixels, I want this to be 10 pixels, I want this to be Okay, let me leave it this way. Now notice what happened here. We have the curve to be bottom bottom left and top right. If you specify it like this with two values, okay, the first value is going to take up top left and bottom right. The second one is going to take up top right and bottom left, just like this. Just play around with it and you see how it works. Then if I'm to continue, I can give this to be 20 pixels, and then I can give the last one to be 10 pixels. So what I did is, this first value applies border radius on the left. Remember I said CSS, most of this styling works clockwise. So we move from left to right or from top back to the left. Okay. In the case of border radius, we are starting from the left, 0 pixels, and then we move over to the right 10 pixels here, right? And then we move over to the left, to the bottom 20 pixels here, clockwise, right? And then lastly we are stopping here, which is what? 10 pixels. But we want all of this to be applied. We want the same border to be applied all around. So we're going to give it one value of what? 10 pixels. And that's done. Okay. So we have settled the shape and look of our header. Right? We move. Now we said inside our header we have a logo. So I'm going to come here. I want to put this on large screen for the sake of this explanation, right? So to bring in an image, we're going to use the image tag. And the image tag has two very important attributes, the src and the alt attribute. So this src means source. It's going to point to the location of the image that we want to display. And the alt is going to show a text whenever the image cannot be displayed. So let's go over to our browser. You can see the name logo, right? Because the image cannot be displayed, the logo is then what? Displayed. So that anybody browsing will know that, okay, this is a logo that is not showing. Okay. Now we want to trace our logo. And our logo is right here in the image tag. So how do we access this image tag? First of all, in the folder structure, we have the index.html to be in the main folder, right? So now, right here, we want to access this, want to access this logo image in our image folder. How do we get into the image folder? Right now, we are in our index file, right? Right here, we are inside the index file. But we need to come out of the index file and come into our folder, our main folder, where all of our folders are saved, right? To come out of the index file, you just need a dot and a slash, right? Doing this brings you out of this file and takes you into our main folder. Okay, now inside the main folder, we want to access images. So now that we are inside the main folder, we just need to type images. You can see it pops up there, right? And inside images, we want to now access logo.svg. So you come here and you type slash, then you scroll down, we have logo.svg. And that's that, right? So we have our logo in our project. Okay. Now moving on, let me remove this other content and I'll put it here. Let me put it inside this toggle thing. So for example, I'll call this toggle. Okay. I'll call it toggle, and I'll call, let me comment this out, and I'll call this what? Logo. Sorry, logo. So let's see what this looks like on the browser. You see the logo and the toggle come stacked upon each other because they are both what? Inside of a block tag. The div and the div is a block style element. Alright, they take up the full width instead of line by line. But according to our project, we see that these things align on the same line horizontally, right? Extensions, the logo to the left, and icons to the toggle icon to the right. Okay. Now, how do we achieve this? We want the logo to be here, and we want the toggle to be here. Now, what kind of arrangement is that? It's a horizontal arrangement, is it not? Which means we are going to use the display of flex. We are going to display flex on their container. Okay, we are not going to display flex on logo itself. We are not going to display flex on toggle itself. We are going to display flex on their what? Parent elements. Whoever is housing them is who we are going to give the flex, and that is our header content. So we're going to display what? Flex. And let's see what happens. Great. Now you see that they are side by what? Side. So we said display flex aligns items either horizontally or vertically. So by default, flex aligns all of the elements to be horizontal, okay, side by side, not one on top the other vertically. If you want to achieve one on top the other vertically, you then have to declare a flex direction, and we call it the what? Column. Because you already know column runs top to bottom, right? And row moves left to what? Right. So in this case, we want our flex to be shown only vertically. That is where you use the what? Column. But according to our project, this is not what we need, so we're taking it off. So now we have the vertical alignment. So I'll put this and close this. Great, so now we have the vertical alignment. But how do we want the toggle to be on the right and the logo to be on the left? How do we do that? Now, we are going to use the justify. Remember I said to align a flex, the items of a flex container horizontally. The same way we pushed our red container initially to the middle of the page using flex, we use the justify content center, right? So if I use justify content to be in the center, it moves them horizontally, exactly, and puts them in the center of our header container. But this is not what we want. Now, there is another type of value you can give to your what? Justify content, and that is space around. So how space around works is it's going to give an equal space. If I'm to put a line here, okay, let me try that, see if it works. Let me put a line here, exactly. So what it does is it's going to give the space around our content to the left and to the right. It's going to give them equal space. That's what the space around does. So the space here is going to be equal to the space here, and the space here is going to be equal to the space here. That is what space around. And this is not what our project looks like. They are at the edge of our what? Header content. So what else can we do? We can apply the space evenly. So space evenly means the space between the content is going to be equal to the space. Let me take this off. Okay, so the space between the content here is going to be equal to the space at the end, and it's going to be equal to the space at the beginning. So they are evenly spaced across the what? Header content. This is what the space evenly does. This is not the solution that we are looking for. So what else can we do to the justify content? What we're going to do is space between. Exactly. So what we did was apply a space between our what? Elements. This space. So now this space pushed the logo to the left and pushed the toggle to the what? To the right. And now we have achieved our what? Our layout of left and right within our header content. So moving on, we can also see that this icon is in the middle of our header content vertically, right? So we need to apply a styling that places the toggle and the logo at the center of this header content vertically. Now, how do we apply styling vertically within a flex container? Like I said earlier, we're going to use the align. We're going to use the align what items, and the align items we're going to center it. Awesome. So you can see they are in the middle. Align items also has other values. We can either put it start. Start means it's at the top. End means it's at the bottom. You can see here. And center is at the center. So what we need is to put it in the center. But can you also notice that there is a space on the right and a little space on the left of our content? Here the logo is at the edge and the toggle is at the edge. We want there to be a space between the content, and to do that we're going to use the padding like I explained before, and the padding is going to be 10 pixels. So you can see there's a space around this header content right now. 10 pixels right, 10 pixels left, 10 pixels at the top, and 10 pixels at the bottom. Take this off. Excuse me. So great, we have gotten our layout. Now let us replace the items within our header content. So here we take this off, we have our logo already. Awesome, you can see the logo is already on the left now, and here we have our toggle icon, which is going to be an image again, and here is going to be theme. So we'll call this a dark theme. Okay, you can see the alt element displays this text when there's no image that is showing, right? So now the source takes the same path as well, because we have all the images inside our image folder. So we'll start with the dot slash, we'll go into the images, and then we're looking for the moon logo for the dark theme, right? So we'll click on moon.svg. So you can see our moon is displayed, and we have automatically gotten our header content. Okay, that being said, we're done with this, and we're going to move on to creating the next section, which is the filter section, which is this, all of this. Okay, so I'll hide this. So we're going to create this section now the same way we created the header. The same thing is going to apply for this section. Okay, we are going to give it a width. So we're going to give it a width of 100%, and inside this filter section we're going to give it a paragraph element or a h1 element, right? And we're going to create a block or another div that contains all of this. So the next video I'm going to be explaining how we're going to get this filter section, applying the same idea and concept we did in the header section: the flex, the align items, the justify content, and so on.